Packaging refreshes, packaging refreshes, packaging refreshes. This is something that we were told was going to slow down and we weren't going to get as many packaging refreshes in the future. But they lied to us. The Studio Series has been full of some packaging refreshes, and exclusive lines have had packaging refreshes. I'm talking about More Than Meets the Eye Hound, More Than Meets the Eye Scourge, Studio Series Snarl, Sunstreaker, Wheeljack. The list goes on. We still are getting packaging refreshes, and I think we're going to keep getting packaging refreshes. And when they said no more packaging refreshes, I was really hoping that meant that we would be getting tweaked versions of the characters, like a Rise of the Beast Scourge, but it would have a more accurate head. Stuff like that, or more accurate colors, more accurate paint job. Just little stuff like that. But that doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to be doing straight up re-releases once again. And we have more listings of that. We're going to start with the Walmart Retro line, Exhaust and Bugbite. Now this is a strange one because we have Gen Selects versions of these two characters already. I think Exhaust is very straightforward. It is going to be the recently released Studio Series Wheeljack, which is the Earthrise Wheeljack, repainted into Exhaust again. According to some leakers, this is going to have a brighter color scheme, a more accurate color scheme to the Diaclone release. So maybe blue, purple windshields, brighter red. But I think this is a good idea. Like, they have the head. I'm sure some people missed out on Exhaust. I love the Diaclone stuff. I think it's really cool. So honestly, I'm all for it. Bugbite, on the other hand, we don't know if it's going to be an e-hobby homage or if it's going to be like a classics version of Bugbite. So the Bugbite that we got in Generation Selects before was a repaint of Earthrise Cliffjumper, except it had the Bumblebee head. And the only purple on him, I believe, was the gun. So it was more of an homage to the e-hobby Bugbite, the e-hobby Bugbite that came out. Whereas Classics Bugbite has a bit more purple. And if you got the new Studio Series Devastation Bumblebee, that Bumblebee resembles a lot of the Classics Bumblebee. So I think we could very well see this Bugbite be a repaint of the Devastation Bumblebee, maybe with some nice hits of purple, really could pop. Or he's going to be a repaint of the Studio Series 86 Bumblebee, and again, he could have the purple, or he could just be a plain white redeco. Either way, again, I think this is good. Some people really don't like how the Earthrise Cliffjumper, you have to remove the back of the car. His transformation cheats a little bit, so I'm sure a lot of people would prefer one of these new Bumblebees. I do think that the 86 Bumblebee is an improvement over the Earthrise Cliffjumper. I don't have the Devastation Bumblebee, so I can't really comment on that one, but it does look really good. So those are two re-releases we have coming. These are going to be in the Walmart exclusive subline, the retro line, which is weird because they were never retro characters, well, except for Exhaust. And then we have two more. We have Shattered Glass Starscream and Earthrise Runabout. Runabout, I'm sure if you were collecting when Runabout and Runamuck came out, this one makes so much sense to you because Runamuck was a retail release, so he was easier to find. He was still a little hard to find, but he was easier to find. He didn't go for as crazy prices, and I think he got reissued last year or a couple years ago now. So collectors got him, but Runabout was insanely hard to get. In Canada, he was a Toys R Us exclusive, and Toys R Us was going downhill very fast at the time and getting like no exclusives. So was Thrust at the time. So Runabout and Thrust were like impossible to get in Canada, and it really pissed me off, and I'm sure it pissed a lot of other collectors off. So I was able to get one off of eBay for like a decent price. I won an auction or something years ago when it came out. So I got really lucky. A lot of people did not get lucky, and it shouldn't have taken them this long to re-release it. Like, this is if you have Runabout, you want Runamuck, you want both of them. And making one such a hard to find exclusive during COVID times was a horrible decision. So I'm glad they're finally righting this wrong. And then Shattered Glass Starscream is one I don't think there was a lot of demand for because EB Games in Canada ended up getting the Megatron and the Starscream, and the Starscream shelf warmed. It also yellowed like crazy, which I still want to make a video on yellowing because I feel like they've fixed it for now, but We can't be too sure because yellowing could pop up again. And if it pops up again, I would want to quit collecting because so many great figures suffered from yellowing. It seems like the yellowing has been fixed. The Shattered Glass Starscream is a cool design. I still think it's going to shelf warm though because there's not a lot of demand. And so personally, I would prefer it when they take an existing figure and then they do a packaging refresh of that figure, but they switch up the deco to make it a little bit different. A great example of this is Legacy Metalhawk. The initial release of Legacy Metalhawk was more based on the Master Force cartoon, and then when they did his later Legacy version, that was based more on his toy deco. So they changed the deco but keep the mold the same. And the same thing just happened with Vector Prime. Like the initial release of Vector Prime in Legacy had his cartoon colors or anime colors, and then the second release, which we just got in Age of the Primes, is his Galaxy Force color scheme. So I really like it when they can do that, where it's the same character, the same design, just a deco change to be a little bit different. So I prefer it when they do that than just doing a straight packaging refresh. But I'm not against packaging refreshes. The newest wave of Age of the Primes has Fangry and Vortex. I think both of these make sense. Fangry was really hard to get a hold of, really expensive on the aftermarket. Vortex, again, you're releasing Bruticus this year, so it makes sense to release Vortex so people who missed him can complete their Bruticus, or if they change their mind on wanting to do Bruticus later on. I think that makes sense. And then you have the Conehead situation where Thrust was impossible to find. I think that one makes total sense. And even refreshing Dirge and Ramjet again, the initial Earthrise Dirge and Ramjet were impossible to find. So then refreshing them in Legacy was a great idea. But not only did they refresh them, they also changed up the paint so you don't have to worry about their wings chipping. Because the Earthrise version had painted wings, which could chip during transformation. The Legacy version improved that. They used colored plastic, no paint on the wings, no chipping, and also my Ramjet hasn't yellowed, where my Earthrise Ramjet did yellow. So the Legacy version isn't yellowing. Or another more recent example is Greenlight. Greenlight went for crazy prices in the aftermarket, and we just got that figure reissued. Packaging refreshes can be a good thing, but they can also just kind of clog up shelves. A good example of that is look at the Earthrise Sunstreaker they re-released, the Siege Prowl that they re-released. There's really no reason to re-release these figures when we already have better versions of them, or we already knew of better versions coming. So stuff like that doesn't make much sense to me. Same with Age of the Prime's Crasher. I don't think there was that much demand for Crasher out in the Velocitron subline. And anytime I saw Crasher in the Age of the Prime packaging, it was just kind of clogging up the shelves. So there are a lot of times where I think it's unneeded and unnecessary, but when it's those hard to find figures, I think it makes sense. So what do you think? Do you agree with me? And what figures do you want to see get refreshed in the future?